sector, Ghana COCOBOD has long played a crucial role in regulating, promoting and sustaining one of the nation's most vital industries. However, in recent years, COCOBOD has grappled with a range of complex challenges that threaten the stability and future of the cocoa economy. Yields have declined due to aging farms, plant diseases, encroachment of illegal mining, to the mounting financial burdens and global price volatility. Now, the institution is under intense pressure to adapt and reform. The question now is, can the new CEO deliver this turnaround? Now, that's our focus in this edition. COCOBOD remains central to Ghana's economic resilience, and its continued transformation is essential to ensuring the long-term viability of cocoa as a national asset, but also to achieve the vision of the Mahama-led administration. And to do that, to champion that, is the new CEO. My next guest on Hot Issues is Dr. Ransford Abbey, CEO of COCOBOD. Doc, you're welcome to Hot Issues.
Thank you very much, Keminni.
And congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you very much.
What would you say your priority areas are taking up the reins of COCOBOD?
Well, I think that we need to be very prudent in our spending so that we'll be able to give the farmer a lot more than what the farmer is getting today. We need to also look at the distribution of inputs. Seriously, there's one thing importing these inputs or procuring these inputs. But then you get in there and you realize that the chain, as far as the distribution networks are concerned, are also very problematic. And so you need to really look at the operations of your district offices and the officers there, because a well thought out plan could be sabotaged or jeopardized by the actions or inactions of these people in the network. And then there are many things that perhaps we take for granted in Accra that on the basis of these interactions will then inform, how we formulate some of these policies and how we also deliver on them.
I see. Let's look at some of the issues that you mentioned, like prudent spending. It's been one of the things that COCOBOD has been criticized for, even from the Auditor General's report. Now, you tell us what is the state of COCOBOD's finance that you have inherited.
Okay. So we inherited a COCOBOD that could be described as insolvent. A company that owes almost 33 billion cedis. A company, and these debts, some of them are 4 years old, 3 years old, 2 years old. So this is a company that is actually giving out contracts, road contracts, worth 21 billion cedis. And no matter how you look at the financial capacity of this company, there's no way you'll be able to afford to spend 21 billion cedis on roads in the next 5 or probably even 10 years. And you wonder why we would want to do anything like that. If you look at the executed jobs, that's certificates that are pending at the cash office, that's about 4.4 billion. And the company also, for some reason, strange reason, decided from 2019 to sign these road contracts in US dollars to Ghanaian contractors, And so it's been terrible. We owe agrochemical suppliers about $400 million. And some of these agrochemicals, we have not seen them at our stores. But COCOBOD also imports CIF. And so once these importers bring the things to Tema and they issue the BLs or Bill of Ladings, their work is done.
Okay.
And so if COCOBOD does not take steps to clear these things, you still pay anyway.
What is the CIF?
They don't have to clear them.
Okay.
So once they bring them to the port and they hand over the Bill of Lading to COCOBOD, their work is done. It's now COCOBOD's responsibility to clear these things. So we're told that we're supposed to have over 200 containers of jute, sacks, and agrochemicals at the ports. The National Investigations Bureau is investigating because we don't know where these 200 containers are. But of course, all these once the bill of ladings have been presented to COCOBOD, then there's a liability that we must deal with. And so you also have the issues of jute sacks I spoke about quite recently,
which you lashed about.
Yes, you're right. Because, I mean, it defies, you don't know why people would want to cause such financial loss to an institution that is already bleeding. I mean, at the end of the 2021-2022 season, the records show that COCOBOD had over 94,000 bales of jute sacks in the stores. Yet, COCOBOD went ahead to procure another 75,000 bales, which is in excess of $45 million. Now, each bale contains 300 sacks. And so your projected production also determines the number of sacks that you would need. Now, these sacks came in, COCOBOD cleared these sacks minus some a little under 1,000. They couldn't clear that. And that year, COCOBOD used a little over 50,000 sacks, which meant that what was in stock was more than enough to deal with what they will need for the subsequent year. The next year, COCOBOD, despite the fact that he had over 111,000 sacks in his stores, still want to procure another 75,000 bales, which is also in excess of $45 million. And with this particular one, they cleared only 17,000 and couldn't clear over 50,000 at the ports, you know. And this added up to it. That year, we used only a little over 30,000 sacks, because as your production drops, the number of sacks that you use also drops, you know. So
those sacks are still at the port?
I don't know. The NIB is finding out whether we can find them or not. Then the following year, with all these sacks at the ports and all that, COCOBOD went ahead and procured another 56,000 bales, you know, in excess of $30 million. And with that one too, they even cleared less than 1,000. Now the worst part is that, so with all this narration, now you have over 70,000 in your stores. And then you have over 110,000 that you have not cleared over a 3-year period. But guess what? In December of 2024, COCOBOD issued irrevocable letters of credit on the COCOBOD accounts with the Ghana International Bank in London for $48 million to procure 80,000 bales in December 2024. So you have been procuring these bales as against the stocks that you have in your stores. For 3 years, you have not been able to clear 110,000 bales. You will not focus on clearing those bales, but you also go and sign another contract for the supply of 80,000 bales at $48 million and issue these letters of credit, and this irrevocable. So I can't terminate the contract. I cannot reverse the transaction.
You just have to pay.
Those bill of ladings have started arriving. Once the supplier is able to demonstrate that they have provided a bill of ladings covering all the 80,000, the 48 million is wired into the account, $48 million. How do you run a company like this?
I see. So, I mean, we see the financial mess you're creating for us. In addition to that,
I haven't created.
No, I mean, the picture you're creating.
Yes.
Just for clarity, important. In addition to that, would be syndicated loans as well.
Yes.
What have you seen with that?
Okay, so the last time we did one was in 23-24. And of course, that has also brought us a big problem, which is what we call a rollover. Because this is how the syndicated loan works, so that we just understand what it is. Now, every year, so we are now going to the 25-26 season. The season normally starts in September, but this year we'll start it a month earlier in August. Now, COCOBOD has a department called the research department, and they will do a forecast. So they first of all do a desktop forecast before they actually go on the field to do the actual, where they do the port counts and all those things. Now, there's always a certain variance between the desktop and the actual. So you don't work with the desktop, you actually work with the actual. So let's say the report is that for 25-26, our expected yield will be 650,000 tons. On the basis of this, there's also the cocoa marketing company, which is also a subsidiary of COCOBOD. They are responsible for the marketing of the cocoa. So they will also do the analysis with the pricing and say that, oh, looking at main crop, light crop, and looking at the projections with respect of the prices, we think that we can do an average price of, let's say, $6,500 a ton. So on the basis of this, and with the 650,000, COCOBOD will now give a mandate to Cocoa Marketing Company, CMC, its subsidiary, to say that, look, we're expecting 650,000 tons. Let's say we'll use 30,000 to pay for the Bui Dam. We're still paying for it, you know, and the collateralization was cocoa. And then maybe another 30,000 for the AFDB loan. So we'll be left with, say, 590. So with the 590, we're giving you a mandate to go and sell 500,000, not less than $6,500. So CMC, on the basis of this, will now go out there and engage the buyers and sign contracts for 500,000 tons, not less than $6,500. Now, these contracts are what COCOBOD will put together and present to the syndicated group, the banks, as collateral, to say that, look, we have these contracts for 25, 26. This is the value of the contract. So maybe the contracts are then valued at $4 billion, and COCOBOD is asking for $3 billion, plus financing cost and everything, maybe $3.3 billion. Okay. So this is how it works. Now for 23, 24, the market had realized COCOBOD's problems, financial problems and others. So COCOBOD asked CMC to go and sell these contracts at $2,600 a ton. That was the average price for 23, 24. Interestingly and strangely, in that year 23, 24, the first syndicated loan hit COCOBOD's account on the 22nd of December, 2023, when the season had opened in September. So September, October, November, and virtually December, there was no syndicated loan and therefore no seed fund for LBCs to go and purchase cocoa. This has never happened in the history of COCOBOD.
What should have happened in that scenario?
The syndicated loan would come before the season opens.
Right.
And then out of this syndicated loan, there's what you call seed fund, which is what COCOBOD gives to the license buying companies, who will then go out there and purchase the beans from the farmers on behalf of COCOBOD.
But in this case, the money came late.
22nd of December. So for close to 4 months after the season had opened, there was even no money. Now, the worst part is that at the end of this season, COCOBOD could not deliver 333,767 tons that it has sold at $2,600. 333,767 tons. So it then must be rolled over to the next season. So COCOBOD for 24, 25 actually issued a request for proposal to receive proposals from the financial institutions for yet another syndicated loan for 24, 25. The market did not respond.
All right.
The market did not respond to this request for proposal which COCOBOD issued for the 24, 25 season. But in this adversity, fortunately or unfortunately, Côte d'Ivoire had dropped, production had dropped by about 500,000 tons as a result of CSSVD. Ghana had also dropped about 300,000 tons. So there was a global shortage for the bean. The buyers were scrambling for the bean. So the guys in the trading room then spoke with the buyers and others, and then they came up with a plan to then let the buyers pre-finance the crop on behalf of COCOBOD, because we didn't have the money to. So the crop was pre-financed by the buyers. But guess what? That is when the prices went up. So the mandate that COCOBOD gave to CMC for 24-25 was $6,600 a ton. Mind you, they had sold the 23-24 at 2.6 and could not deliver 333,767 tons, which then had to be delivered in 24-25. What that meant was that for every ton of cocoa, 24-25, that is used to service the rollover, the Ghanaian cocoa farmer, largely, and COCOBOD lose $4,000 on every single ton. 4,000 US dollars. So that was the impact of the rollover. So for every ton, and us at, I believe us at April, we had serviced 210,000 tons.
April of this year.
2025. 210,000 tons of this 333,767 tons.
We're still in arrears.
Yes. Now, this 210,000 tons translates into a loss of $840 million, which is money which should have largely gone to the cocoa farmer and to COCOBOD as a result of this decision that was taken in 23-24. And it is the reason why they could not, although the mandate for 24-25 was $6,600, they could not increase the producer price to a higher level. And they started around 2.9, and then with 3 weeks to the election, they increased it to 3.1. Because 3.1 of 6,600 is less than 50%.
Okay.
So whilst the rest of us outside COCOBOD were expecting higher prices on the basis of the increased prices globally, those inside there knew what had happened. They knew about the rollover. And they knew that on the basis of the rollover and the fact that we are going to service this rollover with a 24-25 crop, there was no way they could increase these prices significantly. But the rest of us didn't know. I had to get into COCOBOD to find out that indeed we had a rollover of 333,767 tons, which was sold at $2,600. This was not in any handing over notes.
At all?
No.
So you went in blind, essentially?
Yes.
But now that the pressures are increasing for COCOBOD to increase the Farmgate price from $3,100 per ton,
yes.
How are you going to manage that, given this very complex and dire financial situation of COCOBOD?
Now we are even going to roll over because we have not been able to do all the 333. So we are rolling over about 120,000 into 25, 26. So we're continuing with that hangover.
Until you finish?
Yes. But His Excellency the President had indicated that we should still find a way of paying the farmer more. But guess what has just happened in the last few weeks? As we all get excited about the performance of the cedi, something significant has happened as far as cocoa is concerned. By virtue of the performance of the cedi, the price that we pay, the producer price we pay to the farmer, has moved from $3,100 to $4,100. Yet the cedi value remains the same.
Let's break that down. Let's break it down.
As a result of the performance of the cedi, so let's say the 3-1, what we pay the farmer, translates to about 49,000 cedis.
Right.
Okay. Now, by virtue of the performance of the cedi, the increasing strength of the cedi, it now cost us in dollar terms $4,100 to be able to pay the farmer. That's what we're paying 3-1.
Yeah. So
the strength of the cedi has moved in dollar terms, the producer price, from $3,100 to about $4,100. So without the corresponding move in the cedi term, in the cedi value.
So is this reaching the the farmers? Is it making the farmers happy? Would you say at this time?
So in cedi terms, the farmer will not see an increase in what they are getting. But if there is a corresponding effect, so for example, if transport fares are going down, if food inflation is going down, therefore price of food and other items are going down, what it then means is that the same cedis would be able to buy more. So the value of the cedi is then gone up. But if you look at it on the face of it, 49,000 has not changed from 49,000. But in dollar terms, your 49,000 was, say, $3,100. Today, it is almost $4,100.
So COCOBOD is paying more.
COCOBOD is paying more. So when we purchase the cocoa from the cocoa farmer today, we're paying almost $4,100. Although the announced producer price was 3-1. But by virtue of the strength of the cedi in the last few weeks, it has adjusted the price from 3-1 to almost 4-1.
Does that, compound your already precarious financial situation?
It does. It does, because we earn dollars, largely, because about 90% of our sale is external. So we earn USD. And then the Bank of Ghana, of course, the USD, they give us cedis. And then we pay cedis. So we earn in dollars.
I get it. But it puts you in a very tricky position.
Yes, it does.
Right? Because we need the CD to...
It does. I was telling the finance minister, jokingly, we were having a conversation, and I said, look, I've done my projections. I used 15.5. He says, I'm going to drive the thing to 10. It was you I thought about and decided that I'll stay at 12. So this morning I called him, and I said, Minister, but you said because of me, you were going to stay at 12. Because already, by what you're doing, you've shoved off 3 cities, 50 pesos of every dollar of my projections. So if I'm going to do a sale of $4 billion, you've taken off over 12 billion already by virtue of the performance of the city. Is that going to stay at 12? And now I'm saying 12. That the thing is gone below 12. He says, I'm sorry, my brother. You work with 10.
I see. Which means that COCOBOD will have to find the extra money.
So it works both ways. Now, it means that for our projections, we are going to have about 5 cities, 50 pesos shaved off every dollar. The flip side too is that for our debt that is denominated in dollars, it sees a reduction. So I now need to do the modeling, the financial modeling, to see where the gains are and where the losses are. But obviously, I've given you one scenario, for example, that by virtue of the performance of the CD, it has adjusted in dollar terms the producer price from 3.1 to close to 4.1. Yet the CD value remains the same.
But we've seen reports that the Farmgate price could go up by August. Given what you're experiencing now with the appreciation of in the value of the city, do we still have that August deadline in mind that will increase prices?
So we're opening the season in August, and obviously we're going to do a new producer price.
Okay.
So watch this scenario. We didn't know that this is what the city was going to do. Okay. So assuming we were working with 15, and the projections were that we could go to 4,000. That would have meant, or maybe 4,100. That would have meant a 1,000 CD, $1,000 increase in the producer price. This would mean a 15,000 CDs, 15,000 CD increment in the CD value to the farmer, which would be significant. But by virtue of the performance of the CD, the $1,000 increment really does not move the CD anywhere. Because the CD is now stronger. So the farmer would only be able to experience a higher purchasing power. That is, for example, what today's 49,000 CDs will buy, yesterday's 49,000 CDs would not have been able to buy.
No, I understand that. So what I'm asking is, are you still able to meet that promise? Because, I mean, the appreciation of the city, in terms of how we got there, is very independent of how COCOBOD works.
Yeah, so right? I'm just...
Even though you're feeling the impact.
I'm just giving you the reality that in dollar terms, and I do dollar, and then it will come into cities because we sell in dollars and we earn dollars. And so we index it in dollars. So the current...
But you pay the farmers in cities.
Yes.
So that's the point I'm making,
we don't take the dollars from the central bank. We bring in the forex. The central bank will give us the CDs at their rate.
Right.
Do you understand me? So although it is in dollars, we get the CD equivalent. Nobody gives us, the Bank of Ghana doesn't give us the US dollars. So the point I'm making to you is that as at the last time the producer price was announced, it's $3,100 US for a ton, which then translated to about 49,000 CDs or so. As we speak today, that same 49,000 CDs or so is close to $4,100.
Right.
Because of the strength of the city, the gains the city has made on the dollar.
That is from the COCOBOD point of view. But from the farmer point of view, that's $3,100. It's still $49,000. It
cannot be. So today, when I'm buying cocoa, today, what I need the CDs I need to pay for the cocoa translates to almost $4,100.
So is the farmer getting more? I mean, that's what I'm trying to understand in the scenario. Because for you, On your books, the farmer will get more because you're spending more.
Yes.
But from the farmer's point of view, me, farmer, receiving from you, am I getting more?
So what I'm saying is that in direct terms, you are still seeing maybe the same cedis. So assuming you were a farmer, and you receive your money and you decide to go and buy dollars, that same cedis could give you $3,100. Today, the same cedis will give you over $4,000.
But that's because of the appreciation of the cedi.
Yes.
It's not because COCOBOD has gone up on the producer price.
Yes, but the truth of the matter is that COCOBOD is selling in dollars.
Right, so what I'm asking you is, I mean, despite, let's hold all of these things constant, yes, we are seeing an appreciation in the value of the cedi and the likes. You're approaching a new season in August. We've seen the reports about a potential increase in what you pay for the cocoa beans from the farmers. Will you go up on the value we know today?
So that's the point.
No, the $3,100.
So
no, don't do the math.
That's the point I was making to you.
When you do the math, it makes sense.
No, it's extremely important.
Okay.
It's extremely important because the cocoa is priced in USD. What you give the farmer is a percentage of that FOB. I hope you understand what I'm saying. What you give the farmer is a percentage of that FOB. So assuming that you were going to sell the cocoa for, let's say, $7,000, and you're going to give the farmer 60% of that FOB, it is 60% of $7,000. That is in dollar terms.
Okay, so right now we are doing about 20% to the farmers.
No.
What's the percentage we are doing now?
50.
Under 50.
If you look at the 3-1, it's under 50.
Okay.
Yes, it's under 50.
So that 50%.
So the point I'm making is
that 50% won't change.
So the point I'm making is that in percentage terms, we'll give the farmer more. So that was the analysis I was doing to you. That by virtue of it moving from 3-1 to 4-1, you have moved from less than 50% to close to 60%. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you are giving the farmer about 60% of the FOB today, even when you have not announced a new producer price. However, when you apply the exchange rate, in cedi terms, the cedi hasn't moved. Okay. But we don't sell the cocoa in cedis. We sell in dollars. And then for the FOB, you pay the farmer a percentage of the FOB. So that will be in US dollars. And then it's expressed when you apply the exchange rate.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So, for example, if the dollar had remained at 15 cedis to $1, and we had moved the producer price from 3-1 to 4-1, it will be 4,100 times 15, which will be far, far in excess of what the farmer is earning today.
Yes.
But if in August you announce a producer price increase to 4,100, which then will mean that you have moved from under 50 to about 60% of the FOB. In cedi terms, it could be,
going to make a difference.
It could be maybe 4-1 times 10, depending on how fast A2 goes. Or it could be 4-1 times 11. I hope you get the point I'm making.
Now I get what you're referring to, right, with the math.
Yes.
But I'm not sure it answers the question as to whether or not COCOBOD will take a decision to go up on the producer price. Or you're still observing the market?
Up.
You will go up.
We will go up.
Okay.
We are not going to maintain this under 50%. No. We will go up.
Absolutely.
So the point I'm making is that in going up, it's always a percentage of the FOB. So assuming that we move from under the 50 to even 60% of FOB, it will still be expressed in US dollars. But these US dollars must be multiplied by the exchange rate.
I completely understand you. So what then you're doing is preparing people's minds to understand that even if you go up because of the performance of the cedi, the money may not be as much as if the cedi was still.
I'm just stating the facts. So
absolutely.
Let me put it this way.
I understand.
Let me put it this way. Assuming that it was $7,000 a ton, and we're giving 100% of that money to the farmer, at 15.5. the farmer will be getting 105,000. Not so, 105,000 at 15. By virtue of the performance of the cedi, if at the time of sale it is now 10 cedis, it becomes 70,000 cedis. So the dollar value has not changed. the percentage of FOB that you're giving the farmer has improved. But by virtue of the strength of the CD value either remains stagnant or it reduces.
We'll take a break on that note, because when we come back, we'll do a little bit more on the pricing, comparing with, our neighbors and what the future of pricing should look like for the cocoa industry. But we'll also look at a few other issues to do with production, particularly because you mentioned, our inability to meet production crop season of 2023-2024. Don't worry. With us here on Hot Issues. In this edition, my guest is Dr. Ransford Abbey, COCOBOD's CEO. Doc, again, thank you so much for your patience. But let's get into the issue of pricing and how it compares with other producers like Ivory Coast and Nigeria.
So currently, prior to Cote d'Ivoire increasing their price in the light crop season, we were at 3.1. And Cote d'Ivoire was at 2.9 USD. And they gave the increments, which then moved theirs to 3,600. And Ghana was still at 2.9. And we also did not increase because we intended to open the season early in August. And of course, announce a new producer price. So once again, by virtue of the analysis I was making earlier, our 3.1 is now almost 4.1. So in dollar terms, by virtue of the performance of the CD, our producer price is moved to 4.1 from 3.1 in dollar terms, and Cote d'Ivoire is 3.6. So 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, Cote d'Ivoire was paying about $500 more than Ghana. But today, in dollar terms, by virtue of the...
We're paying more.
Yes, by virtue of the strength of the CD, we're paying 4.1. So the cocoa that I purchased today, it will cost me almost 4,100, 4,000 and change to be able to buy a ton.
I see. So as of now, we are performing better than Ivory Coast.
In dollar terms.
In dollar terms.
Yes, because of the CD.
The reason I asked for how our pricing relates with Ivory Coast is because then it has been fingered for why farmers would prefer to smuggle their cocoa beans out.
Yes, so the truth is that research and data shows that when the gap between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire is not above the $400 mark, there's no incentive to smuggle. And we have the Ghana Cocoa, Ghana Cote d'Ivoire, or Cote d'Ivoire Ghana Cocoa Initiative. And both countries collaborate on a lot of things, including pricing. And that is how come both countries were able to get the living income differentials of $400 per ton for our cocoa farmers. And so we collaborate a lot on the pricing. So for example, Cote d'Ivoire was in touch with me. They had hinted me about their decision to increase, and they were in touch with me when they were ready to increase. I got to know before they announced that increase so that we could also prepare. So we knew that their increase was going to be about $500 more at the time. But we had also done our permutations. What is the quantity of light crop that we're expecting before the season ends, when we're going to open the season, and doing all those analysis. We also thought that, look, let's just stay the course. And then in August, we announced a new producer price. But of course, you make all those assumptions on the basis of all the data that's available to you. At that time, the CD and the dollar were trading at about 15 point something, or $15 thereabouts. And that's what we were looking at, But a lot has changed in the last 3 weeks, which also changes the dynamics and all that. So even without announcing a new producer price, it now cost me over $4,000 to buy the same ton of cocoa that in 3 weeks earlier I was paying $3,100 for.
Okay, so because of what you've said, I mean, it brings the question of how sustainable COCOBOD's financial model is. What would be your response to that?
Well, I think that once there's discipline, and then once we cut down waste, there's discipline, and we spend really within budgeted limits, we should be fine. I mean, we should be fine. It's just, wanton dissipation and gross mismanagement, which will put COCOBOD in such, a terrible financial situation.
Have you been able to point out some things you cut back on? Again, given the context that in one of the Auditor General's report, he had indicated that administrative costs alone was so much.
So you see, COCOBOD has on its payroll in excess of 10,000 people. Our staff cost is between $160 and $170 million every month. You understand? We're going to do a staff audit to ascertain whether we're all human beings or there are some people from another planet with us. We need to establish that. But of course, if you have to spend about $12 million as your staff cost, that's quite, heavy, and we need to look at all those things. But there were decisions that were made that we need to look at. But a lot has to do with procurement, for example. Look at the things that I've told you about.
Yeah.
The jute sacks situation, for example. How on earth do you continue on a yearly basis, spend over $40 million on sacks that you don't need? The sacks come in, you're unable to clear them, or you willfully decide not to clear them, and yet you keep procuring to the extent that even when over a 3-year period you have not cleared 110,000 bills, you still go and sign a contract for 80,000 more bills, and in December of 2024 issue an irrevocable letter of credit for $48 million. I mean, what kind of thing is that? And I'm very mindful of the adjectives I use to describe some of these things. If you look at the agrochemicals, I'm sure that you saw one of the videos where I was very angry on the tour where I went the cocoa pit. I mean, you don't need the kind of cocoa pit that you have procured. Perhaps COCOBOD will not need that for the next 10 years. So why do you do those things? If you have all these agrochemicals, over 200 containers at the ports, they have not cleared for 2-3 years. Shipping lines have blacklisted COCOBOD. They have blacklisted our suppliers. One of the key meetings I had to do upon assumption of office was to meet these shipping lines, to explain the issues to them and to tell them how we intend to deal with these issues and not let these things recur, so that they can take the suppliers and ourselves off the blacklist and we can continue to do business. Because some of the suppliers had petitioned my office on assumption of office and attached some of these emails from the shipping lines and all that.
Right.
So if you look at all these things, if you can have over 200 containers at the ports that you've not cleared, and yet your business is going on, what does that suggest? It suggests that you probably didn't need those things. Because how can you have key inputs uncleared for 2 years, 3 years, 1 year, and yet you are into production? What does that tell you about the kind of procurements that were made?
I mean, so how are you dealing differently with the need for the jute?
So, like I said, the NIB is conducting an investigation.
Okay.
I've also asked for an investigation at the stores.
Okay.
We need to establish, first of all, our documents show that these are the jute sacks that we have imported. The document shows what we have received at our stores. The document shows what remain uncleared that we have not received. Now we have to ascertain what is actually at the port. Do we still have the over 110,000 jute sacks at the port? So that investigation will tell us what exactly is there. The audit of the stores will also tell us whether the 70-something thousand that the books say are at the stores are there. That is what will then tell us what we actually have. And therefore, what our procurement with respect to jute sacks should be. Is it the case that we have all this and therefore maybe in the next 5 years or 6 years we won't need to import any more jute sacks? Or is it the case that these jute sacks are not at the ports and probably not at the stores? And therefore we'll get to see what actually we have. And on the basis of what our needs are, we would look at that and do the procurement. Because the truth of the matter is that if I have 94,000 bills of sacks in my stores and I need just 50,000, why will I go and procure 75,000? And when I've built my stocks to over 100,000, I still go and procure 75,000. And when I've built my stocks further, I go and procure another 56,000. And when I have not cleared over 110,000 bills, I also go and procure another 80,000 and pay $48 million. How can anybody run an organization like this?
Right. So it looks like there's some work to be done there. But, the question I was asking about financial sustainability is, while we see the futures of cocoa price look good, we already mortgaged our cocoa beans. How are we making money directly from the market?
So you see, the sad part is that from 23 to 24, 25 season, the cocoa prices have shot up. Yet the Ghanaian farmer is unable to benefit from that because of the rollover.
Yeah.
Because of the rollover of 333,767 tons. So we're using cocoa that is supposed to be for 6,600 to service cocoa that was sold at $2,600. And that's that $4,000 drop. So even if $2,500 of this was going to the farmer would be happy. That would be more money for the farmer. By virtue of that decision that was taken in 23-24, which resulted in this rollover, the farmer is unable to benefit from this. COCOBOD itself is unable to benefit from this. Because, look, COCOBOD's infrastructure all across the country is in a deplorable state. From the head office to district offices and warehouses, everywhere I go to.
Even after spending the $12 million on administrative costs?
Everywhere I go to. Keminni, I'll invite you to the head office of COCOBOD. Everywhere I go to, deplorable situations, warehouses that are leaking and all that, you know. And the first day I reported at Cocoa House and I was at the boardroom, the directors were sitting there. The question I asked them was, hey, so you guys, you can award 21 billion cedis worth of contracts for cocoa roads and you are still in this building. You know, so the issue of priorities, the issue of prudent management, the issue of cutting waste, the issue of only procuring what we actually need on the basis of stock levels and analysis and all that, completely missing. Look, COCOBOD had a turnaround strategy, yet we never implemented it. Under the turnaround strategy, COCOBOD, and this was in 2023, COCOBOD was supposed to rationalize the cocoa roads and reduce its exposure from 21 billion to 6.6 billion. I arrive at COCOBOD. I go for an off-site meeting. All departments come and do your presentations. It gets to the roads, and I find 21 billion. And I'm like, But I thought that under the IMF program, you were supposed to rationalize and bring it to 6.6 billion. I say yes. But that was the desktop analysis. We have not gone to the field to go and actualize it for 2 years. I asked why. He said, we needed to take the consultants there, but we owe the consultants. So I said, who are the consultants and how much do you owe them? So it's feeder roads and highways. We owe highways 120 million. We owe feeder roads 80 million cedis. So how much did you need to give them in order for them to go with you to the field to do this work, actualize the work? So if we gave highways 30 million and gave feeder roads 20 million, that would have been enough. So my question to them was that, so you needed to spend 50 million cedis to engage in an exercise that would take 15 billion cedis off your books. And for 2 years, this is your own turnaround strategy. For 2 years, because of 50 million cedis, you did not engage in this exercise that would take 15 billion cedis off your books. Look, in the last 3 weeks, I've had a meeting with my brother, the Honorable Agboja, Minister for Roads. We put together a joint team from the Ministry of Roads and COCOBOD. This team has gone around the same work that has not been done for 2 years. They've done it. Last week, they presented a report to me.
I see. Which roads are we looking at here?
Well, lots. They're quite a lot.
Okay.
They're quite a lot.
I see.
Yes.
And how were they able to do this in 2 weeks when for years they hadn't done it?
The same money that they could not pay in 2 years. At the time that we were issuing irrevocable letters of credit for due sacks, $48 million, $45 million, and we couldn't do this 50 million. It's the same money that we have been able to find for this team to go out there and do this work in 3 weeks.
I see. Now, again, I remember reading a Reuters report that had, an interview with the president, John Dramani Mahama, and he appeared to question why COCOBOD was a profit-making business, that he thought that there needed to be reform so that COCOBOD remains a regulator. Now, the likes of Ishmael Yamson have also questioned whether or not, perhaps COCOBOD has outlived its usefulness. Why must COCOBOD be in the fray of pricing? Why won't we liberalize the markets like is done in Nigeria?
Okay. Even Nigeria are looking at reforming what they have.
Oh, but they don't want to include the pricing.
No, I'm saying that even they are looking at reform. Look, Cote d'Ivoire went the way of Nigeria. Now they are doing a hybrid. The truth of the matter is that if you put COCOBOD in the state that it is today, people will question the relevance. People will question the essence. Because if you take such decisions that run down the company, that makes sure that farmers do not get a decent return for what they do, people will obviously question the relevance of the institution. I hope you understand what I'm saying. But if we're running the institution very well, and the farmers were getting good value for what they're doing, because you see, apart from acquisition of land, what people don't even know, apart from the acquisition of land, COCOBOD is responsible for everything along the value chain. Even testing for the suitability of the land, whether it is suitable for cocoa. It is CRIG, the Cocoa Research Institute at Tafo.
Right.
They will do that. So even when you have your land. So the only thing COCOBOD doesn't do is acquisition of land. But testing the land for its suitability for cocoa production is COCOBOD through CRIG. SPD, which is the seed production division, is the one that is responsible for nurturing the seedlings that are given to the farmers. They are not sold, that are planted. All those, and CRIG is responsible for all the research that is bringing about varieties. Today we have varieties that fruit within 18 to 24 months. So you don't have to wait for all those long years before the cocoa that is planted begins to fruit. So the SPD provides that. Then you have the Cocoa Health and Extension Division, CHED, which provides the extension services and everything along the line for the farmers. Then you have quality control that deals with the grading and sealing of the cocoa. Then you have the cocoa marketing company that actually does the trading of the cocoa. So along the value chain, the entire value chain, with the exception of land acquisition, COCOBOD does all these things, even the haulage. The farmers don't pay for the haulage from the farm gate to the takeover centers and to the ports. All these costs are not borne by the farmer. All these costs are not borne by the farmer. All these are services that COCOBOD provides. But like I said, if you run the company the way it's being run with these repercussions, obviously people will question the relevance. Why would you want to tolerate a company that does this? That ensures that by its own actions, farmers don't get value. So it is our responsibility to first of all turn things around. Why will you have a turnaround strategy and not implement it? You have produced a turnaround strategy by yourself and you do not implement it.
Right.
What was the intention of having the turnaround strategy?
But if you think about it, perhaps if we have a hybrid system where, yes, COCOBOD provides those services, gets money for those services, but it does not deal or meddle in pricing, maybe the farmers will be more enthused about increasing production for us, which is something we also suffer from.
Well, COCOBOD's problem is not about wrong pricing. It's not about wrong pricing. No,
but you meddle it. You see, COCOBOD is the middleman between the market and the world price.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so that's what I mean by you meddle in the prices, right?
Yes.
Even though you don't set the price, but you set it for the farmer.
Yes.
And then you go on the world market and sell.
Yes.
Then the difference goes to COCOBOD.
Yes.
Right?
So
assuming the money was not messed up.
The difference is the cost. It costs COCOBOD to have CRIG do the work it does, the research and all the work it does, the testing of the soil, all the research it does, the coming up with the new varieties and all that. We have 45 scientists at CRIG working day and night. It costs money for the seed production division, all the nurseries and everything in the 7 cocoa regions. It costs COCOBOD money to actually produce these seedlings. It costs COCOBOD money for the extension services and technical services that the Cocoa Health and Extension Division does. It costs COCOBOD money for the quality company, the sealing and grading and all that. It costs money. It costs money for the CMC job in marketing the cocoa. So all of this is why you don't give the 100% of the FOB to the farmer. Because if you're giving all these insecticides, fungicides, fertilizers, improved seedlings and all that to the farmer, all this is cost. You buy the fertilizer. You buy all these things. It's at a cost. And the cost obviously must be taken out of the revenue of the cocoa.
Indeed. When we come back, we'll look at the projection of expanding our acreage of cocoa farms by some 200,000.
Right.
We'll find out what the plan is.
Right.
Don't go. On TV3, my guest is COCOBOD CEO, Dr. Randy Abbey. Doc, how are we ensuring that we are able to meet, demand and increase production, so to speak?
So currently, 40% of our farmlands are ravaged by CSSVD. That's the cocoa swollen shoot virus disease. And the only way of dealing with this is by rehabilitating the farm. So you cut down the trees and rehabilitate them. And it costs quite a lot. And we need to do a lot about this to at least bring these farmlands into production. The last time I checked, the estimates suggest that we'll need between $1.2 and $1.5 billion to be able to do this. We had an opportunity in 2018 when we took an AFDB facility, to bring into production 156,000 hectares of both diseased and moribund farms. Now, we got $223 million to rehabilitate these 156,000 hectares. And there was a component of $40 million for irrigation. Now, I got into office only to find out that COCOBOD went back. This was laid before Parliament, the AFDB. It was actually a $600 million facility. But there were other components we didn't draw down, like there was a part for processing and warehousing. Those were not drawn down. But the ones that were drawn down, COCOBOD went back and renegotiated the component for irrigation and added that 40 million to the rehabilitation of 223 million. So making 263 million. So originally, we were supposed to spend 223 million to rehabilitate 156,000 hectares.
Right.
Now, this rehabilitation, if we had seen it through, would have added a minimum of 156,000 tons to our production. Because the minimum a hectare gives you is 1 ton. Okay. So we had $223 million to do 156,000 tons. Then we went to renegotiate to add the 40 million meant for irrigation to the rehabilitation. But the rehabilitation figure remained 156,000 tons. I was shocked to find out when I assumed office that we had spent this $263 million. And we had gone into COCOBOD's coffers and spent another 700 million cedis. Yet, we had only fully completed and handed over 40,000 hectares.
Only 40,000?
Only 40,000 hectares had been completed and handed over to the farmer by the previous administration. And they have spent the 223 million plus the 40 million meant for irrigation plus another 700 million cedis from COCOBOD's coffers. And what had been handed over to the farmer or to the farmers was 40,000 hectares instead of 156,000 hectares, with another 21,000 hectares partially done. So I have now asked my team to re-engage the contractors to find out, because some money has been spent on them already. So to find out how much we need to spend more to be able to fully rehabilitate these 21,000 and add them to production.
No, but what is the reason you're being given for spending that much and still not being able to deliver?
Nobody has given me any sensible reason. The thing is that they did it, like I'm saying, it was COCOBOD itself that prepared the thing, went for the facility, placed it before Parliament. The components for the rehabilitation, if you combine both the diseased and moribund, was 223 million. 40 million for irrigation, we went back, renegotiated for it to be added to the rehabilitation. So rehabilitation now became $263 million. That money has been spent. Another 700 million, so 700 million cedis of COCOBOD's money has been also spent on this rehabilitation. Yet, what has been done and handed over to the farmers, 40,000. Another 21,000 partially done. And we're supposed to have done 156,000 hectares, which would then have brought at least 156,000 tons added to our production. So that is how we have bungled this. So there's a new one. It actually started before I assumed office, a pilot with the World Bank. And I'm so focused on this one. It's a pilot, 21,000 hectares in 3 districts, 2 in the western and 1 in the eastern regions, just to make sure that this is extremely successful, so that we can do it on a very large scale, because we need to bring all these farms into production if we want to increase production. Now, yes.
How are we going to get value for the $263 million that we spent? You know, the COCOBOD money is always large to mention. How are we going to ensure that that money we spent actually brings us value? Because 40,000 hectares
yes,
isn't what we had planned for.
Yes. So I leave that to the relevant agencies to do their work, whilst I focus on what should be done, and let the relevant agencies go ahead and do their work. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
But I mean, and it hurts me, because can you imagine what an additional 116,000 tons will do to our production levels?
Yeah.
You know, so the rehabilitation we need to do, we need to deal with this CSSVD ravaged farms. Then you have the situation of the 200,000 that the finance minister announced, which has been done in collaboration with the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. Like I said, the only thing COCOBOD does not do is land acquisition. So once these lands are, and this is for plantation farming, because you see, the thing with Ghana is that our farms are 90% smallholder farms. And that's the difference between Ghana and Nigeria, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. So the yields per hectare or acre are actually 3 times with the plantations as against us. So same size of land, the yields are 3 times with respect to the plantations.
Right.
So it is not necessarily the farm lands, but it's the kind of agronomic practices and whether they are smallholder or they are plantation farms. So these 200,000 are specifically, 200,000 hectares are specifically for plantation farming.
Okay.
And that is what we are waiting for. Once that is done, we kick in. So Craig will go do the testing. Once it's suitable for
what
cocoa.
are the timelines for that one?
Well, we're waiting on the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. Okay. They are working on that. So once they give us the green light, then we are on. Then Dr. Tukuno's team, also at the presidency, they have had meetings with us. They are also looking at the component of youth in cocoa farming. And if you look at the age profile of our cocoa farmers, it's quite worrying. We need to try and get a lot more younger people interested in cocoa farming. So they are also looking at the acquisition of these land banks, starting from somewhere in the Oti region, which is also very suitable for cocoa. So we're also waiting. Once they are done, we also kick in and then make sure that this youth in cocoa also comes up, and we bring a lot more. There are private individuals and organizations that have also approached us, some around our front plains, who also intend to go into serious plantation farming. Right. And we are working together with them, with our researchers and everything, to ensure that we'll be able to also deal with all the issues that are there and bring these farms into production.
Wish you the very best, Doc.
Thank you very much.
Indeed. Thank you so much for talking to us. Dr. Randy Abbey, CEO for COCOBOD. We've been discussing all things cocoa, the cocoa industry, our cocoa beans, and how we can increase our supply and returns, so to speak. I'm Keminni Amanor. This is Hot Issues. I'll see you same time next week. Bye-bye.